Good morning. It is kind of volatile, so I don't know if I'm going to stream the entire session because I am trading 3 accounts today. So we'll see. It's not loading my screen yet. Just give me a second. I don't know why it's not loading. Good morning. Yes, it actually was a pretty crazy morning this morning. We hit our weekly targets though. Trying to get to my... Okay. And we'll look at this in a second here. Actually, why don't we review this first? Because can you guys see that? Can you guys see my screen or no? Okay. So, this was a pretty big area. Like this area in general is what's going to allow for our Q3 targets to hit. We never really had super high odds of these targets hitting just yet. We're thinking probably closer to that September 16th, 22nd. These were the first extended ranges above the 65.22, 65.31, so closer to like 3.6, 65.40.50. These were like 13, 17 point extensions off those highs, which we'll talk about in a second here. And I did leave some notes on this because we could have forward risk back to 6452, 6464, but it would be best to test upside areas first. So like this was for earlier in the week, which they had done that. That was another reason why they sustained. This was some lower channel support. And I even noted in here, this is off the report, we have pretty decent odds of getting to the upper channel by end of week. 6534, 6544. So we did, right? So I would say that our weekly conditions were met. Do you guys agree? Based on this, I would say yes. Okay, so and we're I think we're still on track for achieving the Q3 ranges. It's kind of just we have to be a little bit careful now because we're working with such a wide range. Like the range we're working with, it's not like it's a small range that we have. Like we've got about 400 points that we can work with right now. But the biggest things for this past week, I think, was mostly to kind of maybe just like sustain, really, like not come back to the channel, which we didn't do. We did a really good job of holding 6452 this week, which is what we wanted. So, and if you guys like the little commentary that I'm grabbing from the report, then I'll keep doing that because I feel like sometimes you guys get a little bit confused, but that still was the same sort of wall. We still had the same conditions heading into this week, so we're still in a good place to trigger these for Q3. We do have, we've got Fed and we've got the contract rollover coming up too, so it would make sense that they might be delaying things a little bit to meet those endpoints. Sorry, my throat is like super sore this morning. So, okay, retracing upside and entering the zone early in the week will immensely help reducing risk if the means get triggered again. So, I think they did a really good job this week, guys, of holding the means, right? And we had a very good probability of getting core to core, right? Which was either this range here or this range down here, kind of relative to overall upside. But if you think about it, like if they sustained a little bit lower but they broke a little bit higher, it's likely the same type of range in between, which we'll measure in a second because I actually haven't looked at it. This is where we had a ton of confluence for support. 6449, 6451. I think that ended up being the low for this session, didn't it? I think so. So while we still have some room back, like we can afford risk back to 6422, 6428, but it's likely a little bit better that they try sustaining this at this point in the week because we don't want to come back into the zone and like into the prior zone because that's going to put us back at risk of like 6188, 6190s, especially ahead of month end. We already knew that there's a ton of pressure being applied for the 4th. So the 3rd has to retrace, which it did do. And we had a really good flip date on the 4th where we retracted our range and got back to that zone area. And then today, obviously, we had that catalyst, which caused volatility to bring us back down. So I still think we're on track to get to these points. Like, I don't really think that they've broken anything. So we're still on track. Nothing has really changed. So let's take a look at the actual chart just to see. So this morning when they came, and sorry, my chart is really messy because I haven't had a chance to clean it up, but this morning they came overnight. This is how I knew that we'd get the 40s today, because they triggered and expanded overnight. So the 65.31, these were some target ranges that we talked about yesterday, right? And overall for the week. So I noticed that when they brought this up last night, they ended up closing at 65.15. So that was actually a pretty good close and pretty good open in this range because they decided that they wanted to kind of take this to retest 65.21, 22. We didn't really have the highest odds of testing this yesterday in real time, and I did talk about that. Like, we have some decent odds overnight. They stalled 3-2 back here, so they tested 3-1, stalled 3-2, brought it back down. So this consolidation in core areas was good, but I did notice that they stalled the zone the first time. Something else I noticed, and this is probably because they closed in the neutral range yesterday and then opened in that bull neutral range, is right before numbers came out. I don't know if you guys noticed this. Do you see how they brought it back into that neutral spot? Like 64.15.50? Do you guys see this? And then they held right off that 65.10. So not that this was like a bad area, but this was pretty calculated, and this can keep you two directional, I would say. Like a 65.10, 65.14. I would say if they probably had held above, like maybe closer to like 65.15, 65.20, we probably had higher odds of actually getting a hold above and maybe the full channel break. So, and I think the overall range is, because they did come back and test 65.02. So do you see how they hit that 65.02 line? And it's kind of hard to see with the volume, but do you guys see this? Like, they were playing with fire, like right in the morning, like right off that 8:30 stick, because triggering 65.02, that's going to set us up for some major volatility, especially late week. Overall range on that stick was, I think, between the two ranges was 20 points, 21 points. I was mostly looking to see this range because if they had maybe opened closer to here, we probably would have had a better odd of clearing this area here instead, which would have, I think this would have been a lot better for us if they were trading around 65.21, 22 before the catalyst, because they were kind of playing within these neutral ranges, which implies what? What is this yellow-orange box range usually implied? I know my chart's really messy right now. I haven't had a chance to clean it up for end of week, but this usually can imply volatility. And these were the first target areas, too, off the report. I think we had some odds around like 3.6, 40, 3.9, and then they brought it right back down. We did open in the channel, though, so 6.5, 3.50 open. I thought that was pretty interesting because this implies that they could do what? So I need a blank template because this is too messy. This implies that they could do what, you guys? And please participate because I have 3 accounts that I'm trading. So if I'm looking away from my screen, I could lose money. What does this imply? And we can just, let's just delete all of this so that there's nothing on here. Okay. Or even better yet, we can clear the whole chart. Well, if we're sustaining, if we opened in the channel, that can imply what? So, for instance, if they're, let's say they sustain a channel area, which we can pretend is, this is the channel up here. Oh wow, I actually drew the exact increments. Isn't that crazy? I can eyeball the range. I can eyeball when I'm drawing now, like the exact ranges. That's so weird. Okay, so this is the upper channel. Okay. This would be the lower channel. What did they do here today? And it's pretty obvious. So they open the real-time session in the channel, which starts at 6533. Okay, so we can just mark it maybe. This is the channel. Okay, and this is mid-channel. This is upper channel. So if they open in the channel up here, it's going to give you high odds of doing what? What is that going to give us high odds of doing? And we really had very high odds that this area was quite calculated, okay? And they did a great job of actually holding that. This is from Sunday's report. So 6452 hold here. So if you open in the channel, you have high odds of doing what? The answer's right in front of you guys. Come on. You have a very high odd of holding the channel, right? So you're probably not going to enter the channel. That was one of the main reasons I went long right here, guys. I did my first long right here when I had told you guys that I'm going to do like a entry long. And then I did that second ad when they held 5-2. Okay, so we had really good odds that they probably were not going to break this down into the channel. Plus, they also, so that's the channel open. This is the real-time open. They also hit our target. So it's not like they just didn't break. They also hit these ranges. And if we're listening off like the report, so even off of like the 2-2 area, let's say, 2-3 area, that's a 17-point extension. So what does that usually imply? So let's say from here to here. Okay, they broke over 17 points. Do you see this? And that makes sense because they've been ranging that 1722, which the differential is around 18.75, 38, 39. We've talked about that a lot this week. Okay, what else do you guys notice? There was a lot of things that stood out this morning. Do you see this? From low to high, that was also that 39 ratio. So the market is still moving in those midpoints of 1722, which is 38.39. Do you see it? It's so obvious. Which implies what? What does that mean? I know that we already broke a 34-point ratio right here, which is usually the first increment, but what area do you think we'd have to break to get some really constructive price action? What do you guys think? 34 points? I would say that if they can get this back over like the same sort of metrics, like around here probably, like 9.1, 9.2, this can get a little bit more constructive. So they've already broken this 34-point ratio. We have some odds right now too, by the way. And I wanted to see if they can bring this back by mid-session, then we have some fairly good odds. Guess what else we did today? Guess what else we did today? And this is off the report too. What else did we do today? What else did we do today? And this is right off the report. Okay, we had an 88-point break last week. We're still working with like those overall ranges. How many points in range have we had so far in the session today? Yeah, so we've already kind of hit that entire metric. I would say that they probably only really needed like holding 5-3 I think might have been a little bit better, but this was still good range. So that being said, then these areas up here should align, like the 9-7 should align with the 9-7-9-6, which is that big overhead that we've talked about a lot, should align with like the 44-45 point ratios. Okay, so that's going to be like the bigger wall, which is half our range from today's session. So lots and lots of overhead around these areas here, like the 3-4. I'd say closer to like that 3-8, 3-9, probably like around here, which is basically the entry into the zone. Okay, from a wider range perspective, so when we're looking at this from an overall range perspective, especially from like weekly lows to weekly highs, we've hit 170 points. Okay, what's 173 points? Good morning, Mexi. Yeah, well, not, yeah, half, exactly. From weekly open or like these weekly ranges, how many points have we hit from opening range to, let's say, highs and closing range to highs? We started hitting these 66, 68 point metrics here. Okay, and I noticed too that the 173 would also have been the same thing as like the 6544 if they broke 66 points off the week's open. So I can already tell that 6544 is going to be a huge overhead. Okay. And quite similar on like the inverse down. From opening ranges, I haven't really looked at that, but I do know that from an opening range, they already failed like the 44 point metric here. And I think they held close to like 60. I did say that this week they're working more closely with like 55, 57. So there was a little bit of a range differential here from where they closed. But do you see how like if they were to break down, let's say 66 points from here, from like these closing points, they would enter the channel. Do you guys see that? So like 64, 46, 50 off of this open here, 64.50. So this gives you a pretty good odd to hold the bottom of the channel if they break down on that kind of range. But from a high to opening ratio, we were trading more closely with like a 63 point range. So I figured that that could be similar to what they do here, if that makes sense. Like this could be a lot more similar to where they actually hold. Does that make sense to you guys? Like, so if they did that from an opening range perspective, we probably have better odds to hold closer to like 5-3. Okay. Maybe like off highs closer to like 5-4. Right? Max would be like this area here, which aligns with that 497.550. So is 64.49, 64.51, 64.53 a really big area of support, you think, for today's session? Like losing this range down here is kind of what could trigger the much bigger breaks beneath, that's when you can maybe get those like 88 point extensions below. And I think that, if I haven't done the math yet, but I would imagine that would probably be us breaking down probably back to the zone. That would be like taking out the 2.8. Do you see how this would trigger our weekly targets? 6422, 6428. Remember how I said that that's probably the range that we could trigger if they take this lower? Do you see that? So if they gave us a bigger break, it's probably close to that area there. If they did the same range that they did on upside, which was 89, I think, 0.75, it should be like right around that 6422 area. So I think our ranges are pretty calculated, to be honest, like on both sides. And right now they're basically trading this in between. So if we look at this from like a max risk to max reward, like this area here to this area down here, we probably need to be trading, the 25% ratio should be in line with like, or is that 4.5, this area here? Okay. So we said 4.4 is calculated, right? Same with 2.122. Do you see that? So 25% of this range is close to like 64.52, which I think is where they held. We need to stay above 6482. Remember how I said earlier we need a break above 6482? This is one of the reasons why. Okay. So it's a pretty big area from like a mid-calculated risk. It's kind of like this range in here that they initially had stalled. And right now we're kind of just trading in between. I don't know if we hit like around here, but right now they're kind of just trading this like right in between, which is not the worst thing, but I would prefer that they try breaking up pretty soon here. Okay, because otherwise we're going to stay at risk. Do you see how like we're kind of still within like a pretty big area of risk down here? This is the downside support. So, and I do think that we have to end in the zone one way or another, or in a channel by end of week. That was the theme. So whether we end up in this channel up here or this channel down here, right? Or this zone down here or back in the zone up here is going to be relative to how much range we get by mid-session here and where they break. So mid-session is coming up here, guys. Okay? Oh, this just deleted everything I had on here. Why does it do that? I'm gonna have to clean up my chart this weekend because it is pretty messy, but I think everyone should have a fairly good idea on what it is that we want to achieve. So basically where they're trading right now is kind of like 50% of the risk range, right? Of overall risk, max reward. Does that make sense? This area here is still a 50% range of risk to reward. So basically what that means is they still have odds to do whatever they want in this range here. Okay? But I do think where they opened in real time could help us a little bit. We'll just have to see. I'm just going to shut this off for just a second here. Maybe you guys can ask questions or analyze things too on your end, just so I can kind of prepare to see when we have the best odds here. We need to watch the 1250 to 1254 window. Do we have any catalyst after 1 o'clock today? No, I think we just have the rig count. I don't think we have anything else. Maybe later afternoon we had something. Oh yeah, Trump speaks at 2. Right? I don't know if this is set to the right time zone though. Is this, what time zone is this? Yeah, 2 o'clock? Is that right? I think that's 2 o'clock my time though. So if that's the case then, because I think that's set to my time zone, so that would be after the bell. Yeah, that sounds right, Mexi, because I think it's 2 o'clock my time, which would be 4 p.m. Eastern time. Which is funny because we've got some odds this afternoon after close. Like around 4:19. But we are hitting like a very, very, very important window here, so. What do you guys think? You think they keep us stuck in this box area here that kind of just keeps us at risk on both sides? Do you think they take us back to the zone? Do you think they fail 6452 and take us back to the channel? What do you guys think? You guys must have some thoughts too. I'm gonna start deleting a lot of this. I know that like a lot of these spots we need, but this is way too messy. And I already know which areas are important and which areas aren't, so. Like I'll leave the 7-4 on there. Which zone? 6.5, like 6,500 zone or 6,400 zone? I'm deleting the levels, guys. Like, I already know what the spots are. I have them memorized, so I don't really care to have them on my chart, but if you guys need a reminder, I'll tell you guys what they are. Because it's just too much on here. Like, even the 20s, I don't need all of this in here. I'll leave that, I guess, because those are our big spots. There. I feel like I couldn't even see the chart. 6488 plus. So they did stall 6048 back here. I did notice there was that pretty big stall. I did want to see though too, like from this stall here of the zone to this breakdown here and hold. I think they were ranging about like 34, 35-ish minutes. And I noticed like these secondary holds kind of like right back in here. So I was just watching to see maybe they would do something similar. I wanted to see if these structures are more aligned with like this point in time. Like this hold right here could be like the 33, 34, which would be soon. I didn't really measure that many time intervals today though, like based on, this is just important because it was a stall of 6-8, 6-4-8-8, like this stall right here. They had odds to break down. This was a concern though because they did break down ahead of time right here, like at this range here. So I was worried that they could still be at risk of breaking down to like 1250, 1252. Do you see that? So we're definitely at risk still during this period here. And we haven't sustained enough. Not that we haven't sustained enough, we haven't retraced enough upside for this to be safe. I do think that they need this back over whatever we said, 91 to like 97 area. Even though this is a 34-point break based on the metrics we're working with today, I think they need at least like 38, 39 points. Like 34 is probably not enough. And they need some better structural sticks here too. So we want to get back to like at least here, ideally here. If we can get a 44-point break, that would take us back to our 9.6 area. Do you see that? Like this range in here. Especially off highest close, 9.7. Probably where we want to be to reduce the risk this afternoon. Otherwise, this risk is going to stay fairly high. We have better odds of some structure breaks coming up. I'll set that to 3 minutes so you guys can vote on that. Can everyone vote on that, please? I really hope they don't end up keeping us stuck in this area here all afternoon too, though. That would really suck because they could easily make this a pinnable session too. This afternoon, if they don't want to break it further down and they don't want to break it further up, that also is a possibility, and just pin like weekly OR between the 70s and 60s. That would be like the worst case scenario, I think. This was the earliest period that they had to start. I think 37 was the actual stick, not 3.6. So we'll see what they do here. That's 50-50. Ah, 50-50 means that they might keep us stuck if you guys are conflicted. Some late turnaround on this stick though. At 3-7. Trying to get back over 7-4. We'll see if they can try retracting here. Really, really important window to at least try breaking. So it was tied. Interesting. Let's maybe set these back. Where did NQ stall this morning? Oh wow, NQ stalled right at that upper range, guys, that we've talked about as being that target area, and they held the bottom of the zone. That's really interesting, actually. So NQ probably needs back over that 23672 and 23686 that we calculated on here yesterday. So let's see. We have some odds right now. This is the first period between 3-7 and 4-5. This is also mid-session. It more calculated closer to like 1250, 53, 54, like just before 1. So what do you think? Which side gets triggered first here? I would say that, like, these are some of the odds if they can trigger this area here, or it should be the same range, or like similar range. How much range is that from where they're currently trading, you guys? Like this area here to this area here. Let's just go with 17 points, okay? 17 points seems pretty fair. So a 17-point range. 5-5, right? Another way that we can look at this is that 18.75 range. 18.75, okay? So close to like 5-3. Okay? A better range would be the 22-point ratio, which will give us better odds of getting 4-4. That would be closer to like the 9-4 areas. So 22-point ratio down here would be breaking the low. That would take us to 50. Okay? This is the period that we really want to have structure break, I think. Anyone change their mind? What do you guys think? Because right now, this is kind of them keeping it 50-50. This isn't really giving us... There's no direction in this area here, okay? This is like a neutralized spot. right in between. Like this area here, they're just keeping it neutralized. Yeah. So do you guys think that they'll break one end at this point in time? I would say if they don't break during this period here, like we do have some later afternoon odds, like past 2 o'clock. But honestly, if they don't break before 1, we could be stuck all day. Okay, just a fair warning. Okay, if we don't break during this period, there is a probability, that probability will start to increase, that they would keep us stuck in this box range all afternoon. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So I really, 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 really hope that they break during this time of day, because if they don't, then it's gonna really suck for our odds for the remainder of the session. How did you guys do today, by the way? I forgot to ask you guys. How did you guys do today? I wasn't around much this morning. I was super busy this morning. But I figured you guys would have like a really good idea on how to trade this. I also noticed, guys, too, that they stalled that 30.75. Remember how yesterday we said that they were working with like 30.5, 31 point ratios, 29 point ratios? From the opening closing ranges, they did stall 31 points here. So remember how I said 4-4 has a lot of confluence? This is another way to look at it, because look, you know how we're measuring risk off 4-4 and off 2-2 down here? That would have also been the 32 to 34 point break. Do you see this? So they did stall. That was another reason why I figured that we likely could get some reversals this morning, is that was a 31 point stall off the open closing ranges on the 830, 831 sticks. Do you see this? And even off like the actual OR. What was our OR for the session? 12 or something? Where did we close the session yesterday, guys? Somewhere here, right? So that's that 29 point ratio coming into play. I just want to point that out in case you guys missed it. So you can think of it as either that 39 point half range, obviously breaking to closer to like a 44 point metric would have been better, or you can look at it as open close ratio. Okay, they stalled 32, 33 points, but they also never, they kind of like stalled within like that. We've had those ranges all week, like 31, 29. Okay. All right, let's see. We're hitting those points here. One reduction stick, not much, but that would have helped odds a little bit. This is the most probable point in the day to try breaking this range here. What do you guys think? Anyone change their mind? Let me do one more poll just to see if your emotions have changed so far after seeing the 7-2, 7-3 hold. 6-4, 8-8 break by 12.54. I'm only setting this to 1 minute because they could obviously break here in the next 2 minutes. So, and is 8-8 high enough for us to have some directional trades? Is 8-8 high enough for us to have some directional trades? No. Okay, so that's not high enough. We actually do need a little bit higher than that. Okay. Pretty nice trades off those back tests though. Trading my sister's account and it's her birthday today, so I hope we get some nice moves this afternoon. I would hate if we got stuck. 9-7 would obviously be more ideal, but I put no problem. Oops. I meant to put no. Thank you. But I feel like even getting close to like 90, 91 is probably okay. This is also the point that they can start doing this kind of PA. Like you see this immediate reject here as soon as they get close to getting a break of 2.8 or 8.8. Look at that range on that stick. 7-point stick. Do you see that? Because that's what's going to prevent us from getting a break to 8.9, 90, 9.1. And we could see this happen a lot in the next few minutes because this is a very important period. 7.5-point reduction stick, guys, right here. That's quite a lot. That would have implied getting over 8.8, closer to like 8.9, 90, which is the exact area that we're looking for here. So is it okay if they're doing it at 12:47? Yeah, if they're going to reduce range, I would much rather they do it here versus here. Like, we don't really want this kind of stick happening at 12.50 because then we could see the bigger reversals down right here. So I think we definitely need to negate, though. This is sustaining, but that needs to get back at least over like 7.9, 80. I think this is the 8.2 stall right here too, though. I deleted my levels, but we basically need like the breaks of like the 8.2 area. I actually wonder. That was the only time they tried clearing right here, I guess. This was a good clearance right here. So we probably need some better closing sticks around this point right here. I don't know if you guys can see that. Like this was the closest attempt that they had back here. That was the first actual break. This was not bad. This stalled. That's a 3-bar reversal and a stall. They really need to immediately negate this, otherwise this is going to stick down. So what do you guys think? So far this is looking pretty pinnable to me. Right? Like these are the weekly ranges, 7.4, 7.8. Look at where they're trading at this time of day. Yeah, it's not even uncertainty. It's more of like just they already met both ends of the trade this week. They met the 64.20s. They met the 65.30s and 40s. So there's not, they don't really have to do anything. They could just keep it in between. Keeping it in between is keeping it right back in here. Not really. Like I used to play those a lot more in the past, but not really. I know Hassan likes to do those a lot. Yeah. We'll see though. Pinnable closes are just very boring PA. And they definitely limit range on both ends. We'll see though here. Like if they're gonna break, they really need to start trying to push up on this 5.2 stick to give us some odds for this 5.3, 5.4 retest. And this point in the day is also linked with weekly OR, so what was weekly OR this week? 7.8, right? This area here. So let's see. So far, they've done a really good job keeping it nested in between, though. Like beneath 8.8, above 5.2, above 6.6, beneath 8.6. No real structure breaks here, though. They basically took it back to last week's close. Yeah, this is looking like pinnable price action, guys. Especially with this being like this is the more calculated midpoint in the session today, like between 3.7 and 5.4, and they've literally just kept it between opening ranges and closing ranges for the week. Do you see that? So unfortunately, that could imply that they might just want to keep it there to close off this week. But we'll see. There's still some odds between the next like 3-4 minutes. Hopefully 5.4 can give us a break above 7.850, because that can help negate being stuck in this box range all afternoon. If that's the case, I'm going to sign off early, okay? I probably won't trade the later session. Typically, there's usually some odds after 1, like closer to like 108, 112, 130. But this point in the day was supposed to give us an idea of the kind of price action we could get this afternoon, and so far that's not looking like the most constructive PA, but we'll see. There's still like 3 minutes left. Do you guys understand what calculated times of day are, by the way? I feel like whenever there's a calculated time, people assume that we should get range. That's not necessarily the case. It's kind of relative to like where we're trading, obviously, at that point in time. Well, calculated time of day should help us gauge the kind of PA we should get for the remainder of the session. It's not a time frame. Calculated times of day is not a time frame. Sometimes it aligns with a certain time frame or structure, but they're not time frames. You're trying to calculate range and PA off those. So sometimes you can get like good range on those sticks, depending on, like I could already assume just how they were trading this and how they brought this stick down right here, that the calculated times of day right here were probably going to stay between 7.4 and 7.8, because 7.4 and 7.8 are calculated Y. Why is that a calculated area? So it's usually supposed to align with a calculated price point too. Why is that a calculated range or spot? And this is mid-session for end of week. So today's Friday, and this is the midpoint in the session. What could this imply for the remainder of the session for us? It's very logical. People just don't really think about it. What do you mean why I have vertical lines at certain points? So I can mark them on my chart so I don't forget. I used to just write them down on a piece of paper, but if I'm streaming, then obviously I need to show them on my chart. Well, I mean, in a very dumbed down way, this is the midpoint of the session for end of week. So if it's the midpoint of the session for end of week, it should give us an idea of what? What are these price points it's trading at? right now. Like, it's just very common sense. It's very, very, very common sense. Where are they trading right now? End of week. Where is this thing trading? Yeah, within its weekly ranges. So, and it makes total sense that it would do that during this period, right? And this should give us an idea of where they might want to close off this week. Okay? There's still some time here, though. Like, I do want to see where they break before 1, so... I just wish we would have had this kind of stick at 5.6, around like 5.3, 5.4, because we would have given us much better odds right here. But I think they could try retesting 8.8 at least. Let's see. And also the nice thing with that too is those spots were right around our calculated spots anyway of like 9.3, 6.6. And the cool thing is you can see, okay, like this week, okay, you can see how they've kept it beneath 9.3, 9.6, above 6.7. Do you see that during this period here? So it's pretty obvious that like one end has to break. Do you know what I'm saying? For this to have some sort of a structural reset. So I think the range differential is probably going to be similar, like maybe the 5 points. And we've talked about that 5 points in range all week. Like they've kind of been working with these areas here. Do you see this? What time is it, guys? Oh, we've got like... I do have an alert set here. I did say that we could have some odds just after 1 too, because usually there are odds after 1, like around 104, 108. We have the rig count. I didn't really see anything other than that though. And I wanted to see if they would come back and break that 8275. Remember, an 82. And we want to see if they can form some better structures here. I accidentally deleted that, but... Okay, what do you guys think? Is this a better clearance this time? Off the 8-2 range? This was the best clearance that we had so far, but then they broke it back down. This was an okay clearance, but again, there was a break back down. They stalled here, they stalled here. What do you think this stick has to do here at 1 o'clock? Super, super obvious. What does this stick here have to do at 1 o'clock? This would be a very similar point to this, 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 this. Yeah, I would want it at least above 8.2, 8.225. So is it important that this 101 stick immediately negates? Do you get what I'm saying? Do you guys see what I mean? I hope you guys see that. I could already tell that that was the point that they would start implying volatility again. What's one reason why they would maybe be okay if they brought it back this time? You can see the immediate rejection too. It's actually not a bad afternoon if you play both sides of the trade, like back and forth, but like this was pretty obvious that they stalled A2 at 1 o'clock because you had to have the condition of closing above. What's one thing here that could help? And it is pretty obvious, but it might not look that obvious. Well, we have better odds around like the 04, 08, 10. I also noticed too that a lot of these breakdowns when they occurred, kind of like in like 5-minute intervals. I don't know if you guys see this. Like even off here, 6-minute intervals. Which kind of aligns with this duration here anyway. Well, this period in comparison to this period, yes. It did close above, but not quite 8275. I think it closed at 82.25. This stick here closed at 83.50. But it's not price that's really giving you the advantage though. Or a slight advantage. This is a 3-bar setup, so 1, 2, 3, 4. This could trigger some volatility here if they don't hold the line. Yeah, so not necessarily that. See if they can negate. Do you guys see how they're just stuck though? There's a pretty good chance that if they don't break during this period, like I was saying, they could keep this stuck. It's a pretty wide duration too, to like 230, 236, 232. That's a pretty long time. And the issue is a lot of these are linked with after real time, so like better odds of breaking like after the bell if they don't clear during this period. Just keep that as a heads up. I might not stream the whole afternoon. I might end the session early since it is my sister's birthday today, and I definitely want to try signing off earlier today so I can take her gift and stuff. What is something that stands out here though, you guys? Why, I don't know why no one ever gets this. Like, so rarely that anyone ever answers this like as their answer. So yes, they closed above 8.2. Okay, that's better than what they did back here and back here, but not quite exactly at 1. What could help you here? Hi, Stacy. Yeah, NQ actually stalled right at that spot, Euro. Look, that spot we talked about yesterday. This 23,893 overhead. That's the equivalent to being like the bull zone, I guess, for ES. And I'm thinking, oh, and when you left yesterday, like after you left, it got to our spots. Like it actually hit our targets when you left. I was like, oh, like you had to leave, but they ended up taking it there. Right into the close. It hit like our exact spots, like this arrow, like this box range here. And it closed there too, so that gave it pretty good odds of getting here. And now it's kind of just stuck in between. So on this, it probably has to break that 23,686 that we talked about yesterday, and that 23,672, like this area here. I think it's just this area carried over, like this box range here, that it would have to break. And it's just been coiling between the zone. You see this? This is the equivalent, sorry, of this. And it's also holding the zone here too, which is, I guess, the same thing as ES holding the channel. So you guys, I was waiting for an answer, but no one said anything. What's the one advantage that you have here? It's not necessarily price, even though they did close above 8.2 and 8.275. There's something specific that they have an advantage of here. And it's like quite obvious. I measured it, and it's also like a structured point in the day. I didn't even mute myself though. That's so strange. I was saying these are the half points here at the 15, 16, 17, 18 of this period here. So it could reset this period here and keep us extended through this period here. How come only 2 of you guys voted for that? That's a really important point in the day. Failing the second, like, odd lot would mean that we could stay stuck for an hour and a half. So like, in other words, you know how we had some odds at 4-5, 4-7, and you see how they reduced the range? Okay, like, if this is the extended duration to, like, through 136, we had some odds of, like, turning it back around here. Okay. Our calculated time was closer to 5-3, 5-4. This would be the midpoint. Do you see this? So this is them bringing it back to the midpoint. What's the midpoint? Don't get this wrong. Oh, Tesla this morning also hit those targets that we had from the week before. What's bringing it back to the midpoint here? Why are these midpoints in time? Why is this the midpoint? The mid price point we said was 8.2, right? Everyone agreed that 8.2, 8.275 was the midpoint between our max upside overhead, right? And our potential risk below. We talked about this earlier. Like if we had really big risk below, closer to down here, this is our midpoint. Okay, everyone's in agreement? This is also the midpoint in time off the second window. So what do you want to do at this point in time here? And you'll have a really good handle on this when you start seeing how they react at these points. Like, is this progressive? What do you guys think? Is this progressive, this candlestick here at 18? No. Like, it's still doing exactly what they did back here. So, like, these are... The only thing that is a little bit different, I think, is it did make a slightly higher high, I guess. Like, right up here. And it did close over 8275 this time, but they took it right back to that 8225 like they did at 1 o'clock. Okay, what's the one advantage that it has this time, though? Well, we've already decided that those odds have increased heavily since like 1253. But pinning it is kind of going to be relative to whether or not they want to pin it between like 64.74, 64.78, 64.82, or if they want to pin it between that range and 64.93, 64.97. Do you get what I'm saying? This period is supposed to give us an idea if they're going to extend that range. What's the one advantage that we have this time, guys? That we actually never really had back here? What's the one advantage that we have? Yeah, we talked about that. It tested A2 back here, though, too. So it's not really an advantage. It broke higher. That's one advantage. What's a second advantage that we have this time? Is there as much pressure right here to like immediately break? No, right? Because there's better odds closer to like 2-4, 2-5, 2-8, 30. Okay, so it gives it enough time to get back and retrace. Do you get what I'm saying? Especially ahead of this 2-4 window. Whereas back here, the time range was pretty tight. It was also... Were, were you guys not listening earlier when I said that they were kind of working in like 6-minute, 5-minute intervals? Okay. Okay, that's the minimum. They have... Do you see this? Do you get what I'm saying? So their minimum time range is 7 minutes, which is still higher than 5 minutes. So even their minimum time frame still gives them a little bit more time. So they basically have a buffer of time, which they never really had that benefit of back in here or back in here or back right here. Meaning, does that give them some time to come back, retrace, actually get a proper opening closing stick, and then get like the structure break? What do you guys think? Yeah. We could start getting some volatility, guys, right now at the 2, 3, 4, 5 sticks. This is the exact kind of stick we want to see here because we want to see if it can close over 82.75. If we get an 82.75 close, it's going to, like this here, we need some follow through this time, okay? So something I noticed back here too is we had odds at 1 o'clock, right? But it was better if they broke up at like 5-9. So does this look more constructive this time since our odd is 124? Is this more constructive this time that 123 is getting this nice structural close? Yes. Okay, so we have a better odd of actually getting a stick break. And this stick should be similar to the failure sticks. So like these sticks here should be like these sticks here. These sticks had like 5-6 points in range. So we could get a 5-6 point stick in the next 2 minutes if they actually clear this properly. 64, 84 retest here. 6-4, 8-3 hold. 124.25 had the earliest odds of retesting these stick highs. So kind of like this range right here. Around 84.75, 86. Doesn't necessarily have to test a 8, but at least try getting some better structure breaks. Is this point in the day, though, super important that they try staying above 82.75 this time? To keep those odds favorable for the 25, 28, 30 period. Yes, okay, so we want to hold the line this time so that we can have that odd here off the 25 stick. How many think that they're going to break some range here off the 2-5 stick? Kind of made a bit of a mini flag, but I would still expect that they would probably apply some volatility. So far, PA hasn't been super, super constructive. It's been okay. They've made slightly higher highs, but they're still stalling. It's crazy, though, because these sticks are the points in the day that could imply some range. You can already see the range coming in here. So what is this telling you guys? What is this implying? It's got 15 seconds left till it closes. It's implying that you should cover. 3.2587. Those sticks implied 8775, guys, if someone wants to write that down. So there was definitely an odd that they could have tried retesting these stick ranges right here. That's what you guys made of that? Do you see how this is very pinnable price action? What is pinnable price action? I already knew that this was going to be the case as early as like 1238, 1237, 1250 when they started trading in these ranges. What's pinnable price action? Yeah, but you guys are still missing a point here. Why do you guys always miss the point? Is this a really good stick? This 123 stick. Is that a good stick? Not really. That's not a clearance stick. If you're paying attention to how I drew it, you want a proper close, a proper open. It's not like you want to close at exact price points. We talked about this yesterday. So this is a good break of highs and a good break of that stick, but this is an example of going a little too high too fast. Okay? So you wanted something like closer to like this, a close like this to get a nice stick break like this. Otherwise it's going to keep that volatility on. What do we still have an odd of here? I need to reset some of these. I probably will sign off, guys, at noon my time if they don't clear this area, because this is really implying that they're going to keep this stuff this afternoon. And even if they break, I think it's only probably like 8 to 12 points above. So this is pinnable price action, which I usually don't like to trade. All right, what stands out to you guys here? Well, I did say that you guys can play both sides. You can keep buying 7-4, selling 8-3, buy 7-4, sell 8-3, sell 8-4. There's something that stands out more specifically during this period, though, that we never actually had during these periods here. What is it? That's what stands out to you. When we have pinnable sessions, guys, you have to really lower your expectations, okay? So don't have super high expectations when it's a pinnable afternoon like this. There's something that does stand out, though. And I already pointed it out twice, so I'm not going to point it out a third time. You guys should be the ones to identify it, not me. What stands out here? What's the one major difference between this time interval, hint hint, versus the previous time intervals? So price, they progressed a tiny bit because they took it higher, but they didn't really get constructive open closing prices. Like I wanted them to close closer to here. You can't really see it, but I had drawn it here. like this little box right here. Okay, it closed a little too high. Yeah, these are price consolidation at core ranges. Core ranges are what? Between 6.6 and 8.6, right? Those are core areas. Basically above this line, beneath this line. Okay. And this is like extremely tight range, obviously. Usually when you trade like within a 17-point ratio, it can be pretty tight. You guys are still missing the point. Was that just now? Let me zoom right in. What is a little bit different this time around? Consolidation's actually not wrong. That's actually true. But it's more of like a little bit, not entirely. Like it is a little constructive, but what did we have more of this time? It's not shorter, it's wider. It's double. Okay, so they technically still have enough time to do what? Which they never really had that advantage of before. What do they still have time to do here? They still have time to turn it around, right? The cutoff is not really till like 136, 138. It gives them enough time to try to come back and negate and retrace, right? Our interval is going to start widening here after this period. This is probably like a midpoint if they keep it stuck in between here. Well, I said that we had around 7 to 11 minutes. Previously we only had 5 to 6. So there's a little bit more time, which obviously gives you more time to like consolidate. They also didn't really break down entirely during like this interval here, so they are saving that for like these points in time, because they could have broken down right here and retested 7.2, 7.3, but they didn't. And they're kind of keeping it right in between 8.4 and above 7.4. Do you get what I'm saying? Like this is still like a midpoint. So, and that's like right back at that 7.8 area, which is like that weekly open, right? So very similar points in time to what they did back here. This is the point that they would probably give us a better odd of breaking. When what changes? 136 getting that back test down here, back to 6.474 after stalling. They definitely needed at least back over 80 before this point in time to have a better structure break. There's some extensions just before 2 o'clock, but so far they've kept this in a very, very, very tight range. I could just tell by the PA and by like the measured intervals between what hit a specific calculated price point. It was also measured off the midpoint back in here. Yeah, we have some odds around this point in time here too, but this is a very calculated time between 136, 138, especially for like some structure breaks. So we'll see if they can hold the line. Because they could have had some odds of breaking this up during this time if they had broke over, like, let's say 80. Pinnable price is never fun to trade anyway, so, I mean, I'm not going to sit here all afternoon and talk about a 12-point range, right? But you should be able to start identifying some of the differences during these time periods when it's consolidating like this. So what do they have an odd of doing here? They broke this down, obviously, at 3637. What do they have an odd of doing here? Yeah, it is choppy price action. Because it's very bad. It's pinnable price action is what it is. They have some odds of retracing. Sometimes you have to break a little bit lower to break higher. I'd be more concerned if they brought this back beneath 6.6. Like once they break back beneath 6.6, 6.7 is I think when bigger structural downside breaks would occur. What? That's what they have time to do? No. It gave them an odd to try to retrace. It's going to be very back and forth, essentially. There's also some odds just before 2 o'clock that they could try bringing it back around. The windows are going to start widening, though. Stools, that response is wrong. Because that defeats the whole purpose. They could still bring this lower, but usually when you have a very short interval of time like this, of 2 minutes, and especially if they're back testing a very, very big area like this, so like they broke structure right here, that typically means that they could try to push it back. That's retracing up, right? If they were to stall right here and not retrace enough range, then it would keep it in play for that extended downside, right? So at what point here do you think that the risk would start getting super, super high? Let's say. Let's just go between like here and 150. At what point do you think this would start getting super high risk? Probably at like the mid intervals, like between 4.2, 4.3. These are probably going to be the more important sticks this afternoon to see if they can hold the line. This would be more of a risk if they fail to retrace back, at least back to like 7.8 or something like that. Yeah, these would be the areas of like major risk. So if let's say this 4.1 stick takes out this the 3.7 low and doesn't push back, this is when they can have that continuation down through 4.850. Does that make sense? But your odd right here isn't an odd to directly go down. It's an odd to try keeping some of the upside back in play or retracing some of the range. Your risk probably starts to increase at like the midpoint intervals, which are right here. Because this is where you can back test 6, 7, 6, 8. Do you see it? Is risk a lot higher off this point in time here? Especially off 6, 7, 6, 8? I don't really consider 7, 4, 7, 2 a huge risk. I definitely consider 6, 6, 6, 8 a bigger risk in terms of this. Like, so like this range down here, but they don't immediately break that down. They always give an odd to try to retrace the range, and then the follow through 2 minutes. So no follow through on these 2 minutes. It keeps it at risk for the midpoint interval. This is the median point between 136, 138 and the 150, 148 period. And the reason why this is higher risk this time too is because they have continuation flips, which means you can continue the direction in the trade, if that makes sense, especially if you don't sustain. 64, 66 being tested here. I highlighted these in orange because I feel like this is a point in the day that they'd be playing with some risk, especially off these price points of like 6.6, 6.7. Do they have an odd to try to immediately negate and bring it back in range? Yeah, there's a little window here at 4.4, 4.7, 4.8. Because now they're playing with the means. The means usually starts around like the 6.5, 6.6 area. Okay, this is usually where the means is, like 6.5, 50. That's the top of the means. 6.4. So breaking beneath 6.6 can definitely put you at some major risk. And we have an actual flip here at 4.4 that could negate us. So these were more calculated times for risk. This is an actual flip at 4.4. So this is similar to this. Does that make sense, you guys? This flip stick, this is the retracement stick. I don't know if we have to shade these in certain colors. This has to retrace back green. This has to retrace back green. What's the only reason this is even retracing back green? One, because they held 6.6. Two, because the 3.8 stick actually retraced. Okay. These are 6-minute intervals from there. Does that potentially give it another 6-minute interval here through 150? These are, it's not that they're complex trades, they're just very small ranges, so it can be kind of hard to trade because you can get chopped up a lot, but you still should be able to try gauging the price, range, time. Do you get what I'm saying? So this being a negation stick at 144, makes sense to me that I had a flip there because there's some odds to come back around at 4, 8, and 50. Is that enough time to do that between 144 and 150? Yes, it is, right? Like, I feel like 5, 6 minutes is enough to retrace back range. If it was like 2 minutes or something like that, I would say no. That's not enough time. So your first condition is you probably have to get back over 7.4, probably at the midpoint, which would be like the 4.6 stick, because this is going to be the midpoint here. So this is going to be the same thing. I'll mark this orange. Okay, because if this doesn't come back, then it's going to keep that risk high. Like these two sticks, probably 4.6, 4.7. And this is where you could just get like a lot of back and forth. So we'll see if they can at least get this back to even like the neutral point, which is basically back to 7.4 or 7.8. I think I am gonna end this session early though, guys. It's not really worth it for me, and I have a lot to do today, so I don't think I'm gonna trade the rest of the afternoon. Yeah, but I have a life too. Sorry, Dunks. I'd rather preserve my time and energy and my voice on some pinnable afternoon. Well, and also we're stuck within a like tiny range, and we've been stuck here for 3 hours, and we could be stuck here for another 2 hours, so everything has pointed to that being the case. Like, there still is some odds, like there are some that they could still get back to 8-9, 9-1, 9-4, 9-6, 9-7, but they've really limited both risk and reward this afternoon because of this period here. I don't know, I was thinking of just getting her closed, to be honest. I don't really know what to get her. Downside, I think we said 4-5, 4-4, 4-6, 4-8. Like, it should only be like 5 to 6 points above, 5 to 6 points below. I don't really see like that much upside on either side or that much downside, even if they break. Obviously, I could be wrong, but that's just what I was calculating earlier. It would be like the 22-point range beneath, 22-point range above, I think, is what we said. They're still keeping this super tight here, too. My sister's a mom of 3. I don't think she'd want that. Okay, I think I am gonna end the session, guys. This is too pinnable for my liking. They're resetting a lot of these weekly ranges. It's very, very, very common to do, especially on a Friday after hitting your max range for upside, which we did, and we hit our max range for downside on the week. We hit our 64.20s and we hit our 65.30s, so really all they have to do is keep this in between. This is keeping it in between after hitting max range for the week on both ends. These midpoints are also our weekly opening and closing ranges, so it makes sense between 6-6, 7-4, 7-8, 8-8, 8-4, 9-3. So there's a pretty good odd that they could try keeping it. These are pinnable spots for end of week. I figured that if they did break late this afternoon, like maybe they could give us some upside between 9-3, 9-7, if that's not looking as likely now. Downside risk, we had some odds of like 4-4, 4-6, and the 4-9, 7-5 area. Otherwise, I think they would just probably keep it in between which is what they've done all afternoon. Have a good weekend, everyone. I'll see you guys on probably Sunday. Try not to overtrade this afternoon.